If you ever visit a church outside of service hours, pay attention to how the sound changes when you're alone in there. The acoustics, they're different. I wish someone had told me that before March 7th, 2023, when I took a custodial job at St. Catherine's in Ashland, Oregon. I'm a skeptic by nature. Was a biomedical engineer for 15 years before a company restructure left me looking for work. So when I tell you what happened in that building, understand that I spent months trying to rationalize it, trying to find the logical explanation. I stopped looking for one after I found the recording. The job posting seemed straightforward enough. Evening custodian for St. Catherine's Church, a beautiful Gothic revival building from 1897, all dark wood and stained glass. The pay was decent, and I only had to work 4 nights a week, 7 p.m. to midnight. Clean the sanctuary, the fellowship hall, the offices. Simple. Father Martin interviewed me in his office, which smelled like old books and lemon furniture polish. He was probably 70, with gentle eyes and hands that trembled slightly when he poured my coffee. "The position's been vacant for 3 months," he said, not quite meeting my gaze. "I should be upfront about that." "Why so long?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "The last few custodians, they didn't stay. Said the building made them uncomfortable at night." I almost laughed. "Father, I'm 52 years old. I don't scare easily." "No," he said quietly. "I don't imagine you do." That should have been my first warning. The way he said it, like he pitied me for my confidence. My first week was uneventful. The church was beautiful in that solemn, slightly melancholy way old buildings are. The sanctuary could hold maybe 300 people, with rows of dark wooden pews leading to an altar flanked by marble columns. During the day, light streamed through the stained glass windows, casting colored shadows across everything. At night, though, the building felt different, bigger somehow. My footsteps echoed too long in the empty halls. The shadows pooled in corners where my LED work lights couldn't quite reach. But I'm rational. Old buildings settle. Wood expands and contracts. Air moves through ventilation systems. Every creak, every distant sound. I could explain it all. Until the second Friday. I was mopping the sanctuary floor, working my way up the center aisle toward the altar. It was 9:45 p.m. I remember checking my watch because I was making good time, thinking I might finish early. The mop bucket wheel squeaked as I pushed it forward, that rhythmic sound, squeak, slosh, squeak, slosh. I'd gotten used to it, almost meditative. Then I heard it, squeak, slosh, squeak, slosh, coming from behind me. I froze. The sound continued for 3 more beats before stopping. I turned around slowly. The sanctuary stretched empty behind me, my wet footprints leading back to the entrance. No one there, nothing moving. "Hello?" My voice sounded small in that vast space. Silence. I went back to mopping, telling myself it was an echo, just an echo off the high ceiling. Squeak, slosh. From behind me again, closer this time. I spun around fast enough to make myself dizzy. "Who's there?" The lights flickered. Not much, just a brief dimming, like something had drawn power from the circuit. When they stabilized, I noticed something I hadn't before. Wet footprints, leading from the altar down the center aisle. My footprints went up toward the altar. These came down, and they were too small, child-sized. I need you to understand something before I continue. I don't believe in ghosts. Didn't then, don't now. There's always an explanation. So I examined those prints carefully. They were definitely wet, same cleaning solution I was using. The prints went down the aisle, past my position, and toward the fellowship hall entrance. Someone was messing with me. Had to be. Maybe Father Martin, testing the new guy's nerve, or kids who'd snuck in. That made sense. I followed the prints. They led through the fellowship hall, across the tile floor, and stopped at the door to the basement stairs. Just stopped. No prints going down the stairs, no prints anywhere else. Like whoever made them had simply ceased to exist at that threshold. The basement door was locked. I checked. Same deadbolt I'd locked myself earlier that evening. I went back to the sanctuary and finished mopping. Told myself I had imagined it. Wet floors play tricks in certain lighting. Reflection, refraction, perfectly normal. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me work. Third week. Wednesday night. I'd gotten into a routine by then. Start in the offices, work through the fellowship hall, save the sanctuary for last. I kept my phone playing podcasts through earbuds, partly for company, partly to avoid hearing the building's sounds. Around 8:30, I was in Father Martin's office emptying his trash when my podcast cut out mid-sentence. The silence felt physical. Then I heard singing. A child's voice, sweet and clear, echoing from somewhere in the building. Not words I recognized, something in Latin maybe. The melody was beautiful, but wrong somehow. The intervals were just slightly off, like whoever was singing had learned the tune from someone who'd forgotten parts of it. I pulled out my earbuds. Hello? The singing continued, unchanged, not getting louder or softer, just constant. I followed the sound through the empty hallways. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. When I moved toward the sanctuary, it sounded like it was coming from the basement. When I approached the basement door, it shifted to the second floor. Finally, it stopped, mid-phrase. The silence after was worse than the singing. I found Father Martin in the parking lot the next morning as I was leaving. He was arriving to open the church for morning mass, and he looked like he hadn't slept. "Everything all right?" he asked. "Do you ever hear singing at night?" I said. "In the building?" His face went very still. "What kind of singing?" "A child. Latin, I think." He closed his eyes. When he opened them, he looked older. "Come to my office before your shift tonight. There's something I need to show you." That evening, Father Martin was waiting in his office with a cardboard box on his desk, the kind for storing files. "How much do you know about this building's history?" he asked. "Just what's in the brochure. Built 1897. Gothic Revival architecture. The usual." He nodded slowly. "There was an orphanage attached to the church. Ran from 1900 to 1948. 37 children lived here at any given time." "I didn't know that." "Most people don't. The orphanage wing was demolished in the 60s. He pushed the box toward me. "These are the records. What's left of them, anyway?" I didn't open it. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you're the first custodian in 3 years who's made it past 2 weeks. The others quit after—" He trailed off. "The singing usually starts around week 2. My skin prickled. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't know." He looked at me directly for the first time. "I'm saying this building has visiting hours. And I'm saying that whatever's here, it's been here longer than me, longer than the last priest, longer than anyone currently living. You want me to quit?" "No," he said it firmly. "I want you to be careful, and I want you to understand that some of us who work here, we've learned to coexist with whatever's happening. It's never hurt anyone. It just wants to be acknowledged." I should have quit right then. Any reasonable person would have, but I'm not particularly reasonable when it comes to mysteries. Engineers curse. I need to understand how things work. So I stayed, and I started paying attention. The singing came every Wednesday night, same time. 8:30 p.m. like clockwork. Always the same melody. Always stopping mid-phrase. The footprints appeared on Fridays, different each time. Sometimes child-sized, sometimes adult. Always wet, always disappearing at the basement door. I started documenting everything. Times, locations, weather conditions, lunar phases, looking for patterns. I set up my phone to record audio during my shifts. For 3 weeks, I got nothing, just the ambient sounds of an old building settling. Then, on April 19th, my phone caught something. I didn't notice it until the next morning, reviewing the footage from the night before. I'd been working in the sanctuary around 9 p.m., phone on a pew while I polished the brass candlesticks near the altar. On the recording, you can hear me working, the soft scratch of the polishing cloth, my occasional sigh. Then, at 9:14 p.m., a new sound. Footsteps, Small footsteps walking up the center aisle. On the recording, you can hear them clearly. The slight scuff of shoes on wood, the creak of floorboards bearing weight. I wasn't alone in that sanctuary. But here's the thing that made my blood go cold. On the recording, you can hear me humming while I work, completely unaware. I never heard those footsteps, not once. The footsteps walk all the way to the altar. Stop. Then a child's voice, so close to my phone it should have been right next to it, whispers 4 words. Father won't let us. The recording continues for another 40 minutes. Just me, working, oblivious. I must have listened to those 4 words 100 times. The voice was young, maybe 7 or 8 years old, not threatening, not angry, sad. I went back to Father Martin's box of records, started reading through the orphanage files. Most were mundane. Admission records, health reports, educational assessments. But buried in a folder marked Correspondence, 1939 to 1941, I found a series of letters from Sister Mary Catherine to the diocese. The letters detailed growing concerns about the children's spiritual education. Apparently, the orphanage director at the time, a Father Brennan, had implemented a strict program of prayer and penance. The children were required to spend hours in the church, practicing hymns and prayers. Sister Catherine's letters grew increasingly distressed. She mentioned children showing signs of exhaustion, malnutrition. She reported that Father Brennan had forbidden the children from leaving the church grounds, even for school or recreation. They must remain pure, he'd written in a response letter I found clipped to Sister Catherine's files. The world outside is corruption. Here, in God's house, they are safe. Here, they will sing until they are worthy. The correspondence ended abruptly in March of 1941. No explanation, no resolution. Just stopped. I asked Father Martin about it the next day. He looked at the letters for a long time before speaking. Father Brennan wasn't well, he said finally. Mentally, I mean. The diocese removed him in 41 and shut down the orphanage 7 years later. What happened to the children? Transferred to other facilities, adopted out. The records are incomplete. All of them? Everyone accounted for? He didn't answer right away. There were questions at the time, but nothing proven, nothing we could point to and say definitively that something went wrong. But you think something did? I think Father Brennan believed he was saving those children, and I think his methods were cruel. He met my eyes. And I think some of them might have spent so many hours in that sanctuary that they never really left. I made a decision that night. During my shift, I brought a folding chair into the sanctuary and sat down in the front pew. 8:25 p.m., 5 minutes before the singing usually started. I waited. At precisely 8:30, the voice began. That same Latin hymn, sweet and slightly wrong. This time, I didn't move, didn't investigate. I just sat there and listened. The voice came from above me, from the choir loft where the orphans would have sat during services. I called up softly, "I hear you." The singing faltered, stopped. In the silence, I heard a sound I hadn't noticed before. Not just one child, multiple voices, whispering together. Father won't let us. We have to sing. Please, you see, we're so tired. My throat tightened. There's no father here now, no Father Brennan. He's been gone for a long time. Silence. Then, so quietly I almost missed it. We can leave? I don't know what possessed me to say what I said next. Maybe it was rage at a dead man who'd terrorized children. Maybe it was just basic human decency. Yes, I said. You can leave. You should leave. You were never supposed to stay. The temperature in the sanctuary dropped so fast I could see my breath. Every candle on the altar lit simultaneously, flames appearing out of nothing, burning bright white instead of yellow. And then I heard it, not from the choir loft, not from any one direction. Children laughing, not the cruel laughter of horror movies. Real laughter, the kind you hear on playgrounds, pure joy. The sound filled the sanctuary, echoing off the high ceiling, multiplying until it seemed like hundreds of voices. The stained glass windows blazed with light from no external source, casting the whole space in shifting colors. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The candles went out. The lights returned to normal. And the sanctuary felt empty, truly empty. For the first time since I'd started working there. I sat there for a long time, shaking. Eventually, I got up and finished my shift. The building felt different, lighter somehow. The shadows didn't pool quite as deep. My footsteps didn't echo quite as long. When I told Father Martin what happened, he cried. Actually cried, tears running down his weathered face. "I've been here 18 years, he said. I always wondered if they were waiting for permission." The singing never came back. Neither did the footprints. But sometimes, on quiet nights, if you stand in the sanctuary right around 8:30, you can hear something, faint, distant. It sounds like children playing, outside, where they should have been all along. What would you do if someone confessed a murder to you, and you realized halfway through that they weren't talking about the past? I used to think I knew the answer. I'm a rational person. Was a parish secretary for 7 years before what happened at Our Lady of Sorrows in Bellingham, Washington. I thought I understood the boundaries between the secular and the sacred, between my job and Father Thomas's. I was wrong about a lot of things, but mostly I was wrong about what happens when someone mistakes you for a priest in a dark church and tells you something you can never unhear. June 11th, 2023. I remember the date because it was the day after my birthday. 41 years old, divorced, living in a studio apartment 3 blocks from the church where I worked. Life was simple, predictable. I liked predictable. Our Lady of Sorrows was smaller than St. Catherine's, maybe holds 150 people. Built in 1926, all red brick and white trim with narrow stained glass windows that let in thin fingers of colored light. My job was straightforward. Answer phones, manage the calendar, prepare bulletins, handle the administrative work that Father Thomas didn't have time for. I worked 9 to 5 Monday through Friday and had a desk in the parish office adjacent to the sanctuary. I wasn't supposed to be there that evening. My laptop had died during the day, taking with it the bulletin layout I'd been working on for 3 hours. I'd come back around 7 p.m. to use the office desktop, figuring I'd finish the work and have it done for Sunday. Father Thomas's car wasn't in the lot. Wednesday was his day for hospital visits. He usually wasn't back until 9 or later. I let myself in through the side entrance, disabled the alarm, and went to my desk. The building was quiet. That particular kind of quiet you only get in empty churches, heavy silence, like the air itself is waiting. I focused on the bulletin, formatted the announcements, adjusted the hymn selections, proofread the pastor's column. Around 8 p.m., I heard the front door of the church open and close. I glanced at the clock, frowning. We didn't have any meetings scheduled for that evening, no groups that used the space. Footsteps moved through the narthex into the sanctuary, slow, hesitant. I got up and went to check. The parish office had a door that opened directly into the sanctuary near the altar. I pushed it open slightly and looked out. A man stood in the center aisle, maybe 20 feet from where I was. He was medium height, thin, wearing a dark jacket and jeans. His back was to me, head bowed like he was praying. "Can I help you?" I called out. He didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge me at all. "Sir? The church is closed for the evening." Still nothing. I was about to walk out there when he moved, walked straight to the confessional booth on the left side of the sanctuary, and went inside. The door closed behind him with a soft click. I stood there, uncertain. Our confessional was old-fashioned, 2 separate booths with a dividing screen between them, one side for the penitent, one for the priest. Father Thomas heard confessions on Saturday afternoons, but some parishioners came at odd hours if they were troubled and needed to talk. Usually they'd call first, check if Father Thomas was available, but sometimes they just showed up. I went back to my desk and sent Father Thomas a text. "Someone here for confession. In the booth now. ETA. He replied within a minute, "Still at hospital. Critical patient. Won't be back until late. Can you ask them to return Saturday?" I sighed and walked back to the sanctuary. "Father Thomas isn't here right now," I called toward the confessional. "He won't be back for a couple of hours. If you'd like to come back on Saturday afternoon." "Please." The voice from the booth was male, strained. "I need to confess. I'm not a priest, I'm just the secretary. Please, I can't wait. It has to be now." There was something in his voice, desperation, fear. "I can call Father Thomas," I offered. "He might be able to do this over the phone or—" "No phones, please. Just listen. That's all I need. Someone to hear it." I should have said no, should have insisted he wait or come back. But I've worked in churches long enough to recognize a soul in crisis. And isn't that part of what we're supposed to do? Be present for people in their darkest moments? So I did something incredibly stupid. I went to the priest's side of the confessional and sat down. Through the screen, I could see his silhouette. He was hunched forward, hands clasped together. "I'm not a priest," I said again. "I can't offer absolution, but I'll listen. That's all I need." His voice was barely a whisper. "Someone to witness." "Bless me, I don't remember how this starts." He laughed, a broken sound. "It's been so long." "Just tell me what's troubling you," I said gently. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, hollow. "I killed someone." My stomach dropped. "What?" "I killed someone, and I'm going to do it again." I started to stand up. "Sir, if you've committed a crime, you need to talk to the police, not— Please don't leave." He pressed his palm against the screen between us. I could see his fingers splayed against the lattice. "Please, I need someone to understand why." Every instinct screamed at me to get out of that booth, to run. But his voice— God help me, he sounded so lost. "Why?" I managed. "Because she asked me to." He told me his name was David. Told me he'd been married for 12 years to a woman named Sarah. Told me Sarah had gotten sick, early onset Alzheimer's at 43 years old. "She deteriorated fast," he said. "By the end, she didn't know who I was, didn't know who she was. She was just gone. This shell that looked like her, but empty." I listened, my heart breaking for him. "Before it got bad," he continued, "she made me promise, made me swear that I wouldn't let her get to that point, that if she couldn't recognize herself anymore, I'd help her." "Assisted death," I said quietly. "We don't live in a state where it's legal. And even if we did," he trailed off. "She wanted me to do it, said she trusted me to know when, to make it gentle." "David?" "I did it 3 days ago." His voice cracked. "Morphine in her IV. She was at home hospice. The nurse had just left. Sarah was asleep, peaceful. I sat with her and I kept my promise. I didn't know what to say. The moral complexity of it sat heavy in that small space." "But that's not why I'm here," he said. The temperature in the confessional seemed to drop. "What do you mean?" "I mean I got away with it. The hospice nurse found her the next morning. Natural causes, they said. Expected. They were kind about it. Everyone was so kind." "Then why?" "Because it wasn't Sarah." I felt something cold slide down my spine. "What are you talking about?" "The woman I killed 3 days ago. She looked like Sarah. Same face, same body. But it wasn't her." He was talking faster now, words tumbling out. "Sarah died 6 months ago. I watched it happen. Watched her disappear piece by piece until there was nothing left. The woman in that bed, that thing wearing her face, that wasn't my wife." "David, grief can make us feel—" "I know what grief feels like." His voice rose, then dropped to a whisper. "This wasn't grief. This was knowledge, certainty. That thing looked at me the day before I did it, and it smiled. And I knew that whatever was behind those eyes wasn't Sarah." My mouth went dry. "You're not making sense." She started speaking in Latin. Did I mention that? Sarah never spoke Latin, never studied it. But this thing in her body, it would whisper prayers, old prayers, prayers I looked up later that haven't been used in the church since the 1500s. Through the screen, I could see him rocking slightly, and the way it moved when it thought I wasn't watching. God, it wasn't right. The joints bent wrong, like something that had studied human movement but didn't quite understand the mechanics. I think you need professional help, I said, keeping my voice steady. This kind of delusion after a traumatic loss is normal, but you need to talk to. I'm not delusional, he said it calmly, matter of fact. And I'm not finished. What do you mean? I mean there are more of them. The air in the confessional felt thick, hard to breathe. I've been watching since Sarah died, since I killed the thing that took her place. I've been paying attention to the other families at the support group, the other spouses caring for Alzheimer's patients. David, there's a woman named Margaret. Her husband has had Alzheimer's for 4 years. Last month I saw him at the grocery store, alone, moving perfectly normally, buying specific items, communion wafers, sacramental wine, salt, iron nails. He saw me watching and smiled. Same smile, same wrong smile. This is grief talking, David. You're connecting patterns that aren't. I followed him. He went to 3 other houses. Each one had someone inside with late-stage dementia. And at each house, I saw them through the windows, saw them sitting up in their beds, perfectly lucid, saw them moving in that same wrong way. He leaned closer to the screen. I could see his eyes now, red-rimmed, desperate. Whatever these things are, they're choosing people who won't be missed, people whose loved ones have already mourned them. They slip in when the mind goes, and by the time the body dies, everyone's relieved. Everyone thinks it's a blessing. You need to leave, I said, standing up in the booth, and you need to talk to a doctor. This isn't healthy. I'm not leaving until I tell you the rest. There's nothing else I need to hear. The woman you work with, Teresa, the one who volunteers here on Tuesdays. I froze. Teresa was one of our regular volunteers, sweet woman in her 60s who helped with the food pantry. Her mother has Alzheimer's. She's been in care for 2 years now, last stage. Don't, I warned. I visited the facility yesterday, told them I was Teresa's cousin. They let me see her mother. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. She looked at me and smiled, and I saw it. That same recognition, that same wrongness. Stop. And then she spoke. Clear as day, perfect Latin. In veni alium. I found another one. I'm calling the police. I reached for the confessional door. I'm going there tonight, David said, to the care facility. I'm going to finish what I started. Because Teresa's mother, whatever's wearing her now, it's going to keep spreading. It's going to find more hosts. The door on his side of the confessional slammed open. By the time I got out of my side, he was gone. Just footsteps echoing through the sanctuary, the front door closing. I stood there, shaking. Then I ran to my desk and grabbed my phone. Teresa's mother was in Evergreen Memory Care, 10 minutes from the church. I pulled up the number, hands trembling. The line rang. Once, twice. A voice answered, pleasant, professional. Evergreen Memory Care, this is Michelle. I need to speak to security, now. There's a man on his way there who might be dangerous. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to slow down, and his name is David. He's going to try to harm one of your residents. Please, you need to lock down the building. What resident? I realized I didn't know Teresa's mother's name. Teresa's mother? I don't know her first name, but Teresa volunteers at Our Lady of Sorrows, and, ma'am, we don't have a resident whose daughter is named Teresa. My blood went cold. What? We have a Teresa Hoffman, but she doesn't have a mother here. She visits her sister, Patricia. Put Patricia on the phone. I can't do that. It's after visiting hours, and please. Something in my voice must have gotten through. I heard Michelle sigh, then murmur to someone in the background. A minute passed. 2. Then a voice came on the line, elderly, female, perfectly lucid. Hello? Patricia? Yes, who is this? I'm calling about your sister, Teresa. I work with her at the church. Oh, how lovely. Teresa speaks so highly of everyone there. Is everything all right? Is she, is she okay? Teresa? A pause. Why wouldn't she be? I just, someone said, I couldn't form the words. Patricia's voice changed, became careful. Is someone there with you, dear? No, I'm alone. Are you sure? Are you somewhere safe? I'm at the church. Patricia, did Teresa ever mention someone named David? Silence on the line. Then, you need to leave that building, right now. What? Leave. Don't go home. Go somewhere public, somewhere with people. I don't understand. David isn't a grieving widower. Patricia's voice was urgent. David is what they call themselves, the ones who take. They use the name because it means beloved. It's a mockery. My vision blurred at the edges. What are you talking about? How long have you been at that church? 7 years? And in 7 years, how many funerals have you processed for Alzheimer's patients? I thought about it, really thought. Maybe 15, 20? All peaceful, all expected, all a relief to the family. Yes, but you're not listening. Leave, now, before. The line went dead, not disconnected. Dead. Like something had cut the power to the entire building. The lights in my office went out. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight. Through my office door, I could see into the sanctuary. The moonlight through the stained glass windows cast strange shadows across the pews. And sitting in the front row, perfectly still, was a figure. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The figure stood slowly, turned to face me. In the dim light, I could just make out features. An elderly woman, white hair, familiar somehow. She smiled. In veni alium, she said in a voice like crackling leaves. I found another one. She started walking toward my office, that same wrong movement David had described, joints bending at angles that weren't quite human. I ran, burst through the side door into the parking lot. My car was 30 feet away, keys in my pocket. Behind me, I heard the door open, heard footsteps, slow, unhurried. I fumbled with my keys, dropped them, grabbed them again. Got the door open, threw myself inside, locked it. In the rearview mirror, I saw her standing under the parking lot light, still smiling. She raised one hand, pressed it against the air like she was pressing against glass. And I heard her voice, inside my head, not through my ears. We only take those already lost, the ones whose families have already mourned. It's merciful. We give them purpose in their final days. I started the car, threw it in reverse. But you've seen us now. You know what we are. I peeled out of the parking lot, drove straight to the police station. They took my statement, looked at me with that mixture of concern and skepticism that means they think you're having a breakdown. They sent a car to check the church, found it empty, locked. Security footage showed me arriving alone at 7 p.m. and leaving in a panic at 8:37. No David, no elderly woman, no evidence anyone else had been there. Father Thomas came to the station, vouched for my character, said I'd been under stress lately, suggested maybe I needed some time off. I took the time off, 2 weeks. But I spent those 2 weeks researching every Alzheimer's death in the parish for the last decade, cross-referenced with obituaries, with funeral records, found a pattern. Every single late-stage Alzheimer's patient who died in our parish in the last 10 years had a peaceful death. Expected, natural causes, family relieved, and every single one of them in their last weeks had become suddenly lucid, suddenly able to speak clearly, to move normally. The families had thought it was a miracle, a final gift. I knew better now. I never went back to Our Lady of Sorrows, resigned via email. Father Thomas tried to call me, but I didn't answer. I moved 3 months ago, different city, different state. But I pay attention now, read obituaries, look for the patterns. And sometimes, late at night, I hear that voice in my head. In veni alium. I found another one. I don't know if she meant me or if she's still out there, finding others. Don't know if I'm marked somehow, if they're watching me. All I know is I can't walk into a church anymore without checking. Really checking. Looking at the elderly parishioners with late-stage dementia, watching how they move, listening to what they say. Because David was right about one thing. They choose people who won't be missed. People whose loved ones have already mourned them. And in a world where we've learned to see death from Alzheimer's as a mercy, who's going to notice when something else slips in to wear the body for a while? Who's going to question a peaceful death? Who's going to know the difference between a final moment of lucidity and something else entirely saying goodbye? I still have the recording from that night, the confessional conversation. I've listened to it 417 times, and every time I play it back, David's voice sounds less human than the time before.